Well, we're continuing our discussion here on Nevada Week Extras, and we were talking about the Work and Save bill. We want to go into more detail about that. Nancy, what are some of the additional benefits we didn't get to cover on the show that are written into this bill right now related to short-term lending?
So one of the aspects of this bill, which I think would be a benefit to Nevadans, is that it allows you to, once you have the vehicle or you have your IRA, if there's an emergency, you can take out your savings against the balance that you have. And we've heard in several legislative sessions the issue of payday loans, and the use of payday loans is a huge issue because with sort of rising healthcare costs, we find that a lot of people sort of dip into their savings or have to, in order to pay for medicine, can't make rent, and then have to go to a payday loan. And so I think this sort of structure within the bill would allow us to address, some of the other challenges Nevadans face that then lead them to go to a payday loan provider, which charge 200 or 300% interest. And so I think there's a double benefit to this program.
Right, and I know one of the things in some of the payday lending bills is that there aren't other options that we have in the financial sector to take care of short-term lending other than the short-term lending storefronts.
Exactly.
Right. Wondering about other policies, and I'm thinking more of just the private sector. David and Jason, you're both financial advisors. Do you see things that are reoccurring in planning for retirement that you think maybe in the financial sector, potentially other sectors, if there were just a little bit of a tweak to how a policy is working, could really improve how much retirement an individual has? And Jason, I'll start with you.
Yeah, less from a policy perspective, because I definitely like the idea of having to opt out, which is more difficult, and you don't feel it if it's gone initially, but so much is a function of education and behavior. So I'm always stuck on this one idea, the notion that average savings, I believe, is right around 5-7%, and suddenly we're supposed to work for 20, 30 years, and that 5 or 7% is then supposed to replace our entire income for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So that's a beginning. It's a component of savings, what can be dictated through public policy, but it needs to be complemented by other aggressive savings and investing and, of course, protecting.
David, how about you? You see anything that you think can be fixed by a policy change?
Policy is very difficult. It's human behavior that I have to look at. The fact, as you mentioned, Jason, the fact that people are living, when I was young, we expected people to live to be 68. Well, Social Security started at 65, so you had 3 years in Social Security. Today, people are living to be 77 on the average. It's a lot of money to be paying out in Social Security. And 1 in 4 people, or 25% of the population today, live to be in their 90s. By the time millennials get to be retirees, they'll be living into the 95 and about 20% into 100. So the idea that, gee, I'm saving for my retirement is changing. It's no longer 5-10 years. We're looking, as you say, 30 years out.
Yeah.
It's incredible the amount of money that we need to save. As was stated, $275,000 is your medical expense, estimated medical expense in retirement.
And Jason, I'm trying to apply my math skills I learned in high school to this equation here, because I'm thinking of Social Security, and we have so many more people now that are retired, so they're now receiving Social Security, and I'm assuming then we have less people that are then paying into the system, which might throw off the ratios of how much money we have down. Is that correct?
Yeah, and when we talk about long-term care, Social Security, all these programs, the less we do now to prepare, the more we're going to end up with pay-go systems. And as the country matures, if you have more retirees than workers, the cost of pay-go systems will go up, right? So for me, this is very much about preparing and thinking ahead and coming up with a plan to finance the cost of retirement. I think a lot of people will say they're going to work longer and that's a solution. It doesn't end up being an option for a lot of people, maybe for health, maybe they don't have their job any longer. So I think we need systematic approaches to preparing, making sure the resources are there, because yes, the cost of pay-go systems should go up. And when you add on you know, healthcare costs keep going up faster than wages, right? That's an additional pressure that's sort of going to increase the cost of retirement if we don't do a good job preparing.
Increase in just cost of living in general. So let's talk about some of the generational gaps here too. Baby boomers, of course, are on the cusp of retirement now or already retired. What about like Generation X and Generation Y? What kind of trends are we seeing in the retirement savings patterns that those generations are using? Yeah.
I think, you know, largely for most of us, our frame of reference on how we're doing for retirement is looking to seniors today and using that to sort of gauge, are we doing well? You know, the GAO had a thing a few years ago, a study where they said over 55% of seniors 75 and over still have life income from pensions. You go to near retirees, and it's 40% of households. And you look at millennials, 25 to 35, 16% of them have access. So we're not fully feeling the impacts of decisions we've already made. And, you know, for the younger generations, they have less access to plans, they have lower quality plans, and the Social Security cuts are going to come in on them. So they're facing challenges on the income side. And on the expense side, they're living longer, healthcare costs are running away from wages, and long-term care as well. More people will need it, and the costs are growing faster than incomes. So the hill just keeps getting steeper to me as you look towards younger folks.
Jason, how about on the advising side? You have a lot of millennials and Generation Ys that are coming to you and trying to get advice and are proactive and also maybe more educated than previous generations? Or are you seeing the opposite?
It's hard to comment on whether they're more educated. The ones I tend to meet, as I said, I focus on the simple messages of controlling what you can control, saving aggressively, investing the right way, and protecting. And I think that there was a fundamental shift when we went from defined benefit to defined contribution. And there's actually a great article that commented on the fact that so much is focused on accumulating wealth when it really should emphasize income. It should emphasize cash flow. And if you look at how seniors respond, they say that their biggest fear is not dying, it's running out of money. So if you look a couple generations down, and we have a full couple generations who, they won't even know what a pension is, something has to give. Yeah. So there has to be some element of some guaranteed income, whether it's Social Security, it's a pension, or it's creating a pension through other products, which then enables them to take the rest of their wealth, and then that can be exposed to the market so that inflation doesn't destroy them.
I was going to say, one other thing we know about millennials is that they tend to, sort of job shop or stay in a couple. There's lots of transiency in terms of where they're working, right? They want that experience and they move on. And so I think the state retirement plans that Oregon has and we're considering here would be a huge attractive option for them because it addresses that portability question. So, it's employee based, you pay in, and then as you move jobs, you still have that and you can take it where you go. So I think that's a great attractive feature.
And I would add the changing labor market.
Yep.
There's a lot of people now working for someone that years ago we would have called them an employee, and now they're a contractor like Uber and things like that, right? So as people are less attached through structural changes, I think,
Well, Nancy, especially in our labor market with so many part-time jobs and gig types of jobs and things like that, do we envision those will be covered under the state plan if it does pass?
Yep.
Part-time will be covered.
Contractors, part-time.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.